Page 129, The Stranger. On page 128, they're talking more about the A minor scale, the key of A minor. You can read all about it and have fun. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I would encourage you again to go do my scale video on A minor. Do the beginner part. Know the scale. We'll get into the primary chords eventually, I'm sure, because you need to know those too. They're mentioning accidentals. I would have thought we talked about accidentals already because we've had sharps, flats, and naturals. An accidental is just where you're changing the pitch temporarily for whatever reason. And we use a sharp sign, a flat sign, and a natural sign to do that. It could be any of the three. They're fine. It's no big deal. We use a lot more in minor scales than major scales, but you can use them wherever. Now, as far as the stranger goes, they're talking about a different chord progression. And I don't really get into a lot of theory on chord progressions and all that. You can read about it. There's probably plenty of videos that teach that kind of stuff already on YouTube. Just look at the left hand. Take all the notes in there and kind of put them together. You have this. Next measure. Next measure. And finally the last measure. I'm including notes from the right hand. I'm just playing them an octave lower. And then going on, you have these notes, then get the idea? That's a chord progression. That's a progression of chords, a series of chords. And this is just, there's all kinds of chord progressions. Just have a ball with them. If it sounds okay, it is okay. Now, in The Stranger, at the end of the first line, there's a note at the top says, fermata last time only. This is confusing because you're actually going to play that first line 3 times. And so you got to say the fermata for the 3rd time. Because when you play the piece, there's a repeat sign at the end of the first line, so you're going to play the piece twice right there. Doom, doom. Well, you don't fermata any of that. You're not done yet. You play that first line twice, and you go down to the second line. It's got repeat signs beginning and end of it. It's enclosed in repeat signs. So you're going to play the second line twice. You go down to the 3rd line, you're going to play that line twice because it's got repeat signs. And then go down to the 4th line, you're going to play it twice because it's got repeat signs. Now, there is a note on the 4th line at the beginning, 8 VA, second time only. So when you repeat it, you're going to take the right hand, and only the right, not both, take it up 1 octave and play those notes an octave higher. So instead of here, they're written here. You simply go up to the next G up here and play them up here. Second time only on that line, okay? Then look at the bottom of the last line at the end. There's a DC al fine. That means go back to the beginning and go to fine. DC means go to the beginning. Al fine, go to fine. So now we're going to go back up, and we're going to play the first line again for the 3rd time. And now when the fine is at the end of the first line, so now when you get to the end, you're going to do the fermata and stop. We don't do repeats when we do a DC. When you go back up to the top, any repeats that might be there, no. If they want you to repeat it, they have to put in a note, repeat on DC, or repeat, some note to tell you to do the repeat. Otherwise, you'd never take a repeat after a DC, ever. Just don't. If you have 1st and 2nd endings, a lot of marches do this, and you go back up to do it again, you take 2nd endings all the way through, because you don't repeat it after a DC. I can't stress that enough. Now, there's also a note in the middle of the first line there, in the next to the last measure. Last time retard and diminuendo, that arrow. So the 3rd time you play it, you're going to slow it down and get softer in the last measure. When I'm playing with a metronome, I can't slow down. I just got to keep going. So I'm going to ignore that part. And you can do the dynamics. Let's look at the dynamics, because this is interesting. At the beginning of every line, they have two dynamics, and they're different from line to line. The first line, for instance, is an MF-P, which means the first time you play it, you're going to play it medium loud, mezzo forte, MF. When you repeat it, you're going to play it soft. And you're going to do each of these lines that way. You do the first dynamic the first time, then when you repeat it, you do the second dynamic. Now when you get to the bottom and you DC to go back up to the top, do the first dynamic again. Wow, there's a lot to that. Just the road maps are getting interesting. They didn't really have to put in all those repeat signs and everything. It's just that it saves a lot of space, and it teaches you about repeat signs, because the music really can get fairly ugly as to where you're supposed to go when sometimes. It's just amazing, especially with band and orchestra music. You're not sure where you're going. I'm going to offer you a few suggestions on the fingering for the left hand. You can do their fingering is fine. Just look at the first line, because this same type of fingering happens on every line. You're in this position for the first measure. In the second measure, you immediately go down one key to this position, and then down again and down again. When you finish the first measure, you're playing that A, the eighth note A, the last note in the first measure, with fifth finger. Then you're going to immediately use fifth finger again on the G. So you got to go. Now this is a slow piece, so this shouldn't be much of a problem. It's good exercise for you. It's a good practice to learn to do that, but you're going to end up doing that, and that's fine. Now the big challenge on this, other than you're moving around a little bit, is the rhythm. Let's take the rhythm carefully here. In the first line, it's not too bad. The left hand gets all the work, but you got a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So you can do that, hopefully. Okay. The third line's the same rhythm. That shouldn't be a problem. But the second line, look at that. In the left hand, it's a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and in the last measure, that second line, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So you got to work that rhythm out carefully. Then on top of that, you got to do the right hand out carefully. Look at that rhythm. It's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and rest. So you got to do that. They're totally different rhythms. So when you put the two hands together, it's like, pull your hair out. So it's that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 real slow. Work that out real carefully. Okay. Similar rhythm in the last line, just different notes, because it's here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Okay. So you have to watch these rhythms out very, very carefully. Real slow. One head at a time at first, then put them together and try the whole mess that way, real slow, and just slowly build it up. It is, as I said, it's a slow piece. It's, I don't know. One thing I will warn you on is that the second and fourth lines don't follow the same chords. The second line, you're gradually going down in the left hand. But the last line, no. You're here, then you go to a B flat, then back up. Play the rests is what I say. Remember to lift up on the rest. Right there in the first line in the right hand, you have the quarter note, half note, and then a quarter rest. So we want one beat of rest in the right hand. So when the left hand plays that middle C, the fourth beat, you lift up the right hand. Right there. Next line, you lift it up on the B. Third measure, you lift it up on the A. Second line, in the second measure, it's here. When the left hand plays the half note, you lift up the right hand. So we get a rest. Okay. And the other rests all work the same way. Be careful. Try and be accurate with your rests. 4/4 time. It's in the key of A minor, so there's no sharps or flats except for the accidentals. Go ahead and follow the fingering they've got. And we're going to take all the repeats and everything. We're going to play it right through. You do the dynamics. I'm going to play the notes because I need you to hear the notes. Now make sure you can play it before you try it with me. So go ahead and learn it first. And then when you think you've got it, then play it with me. One hand at a time if you have to. So hands in A position. There's no pedal. We don't have to deal with that. Oh. 4 counts. 1, 2, ready, go. Repeat. Higher.